Hey guys, welcome back. For this topic, we'll be discussing the very basic component, and that component is button. So now, without any further ado, let's get started. Before we proceed with the topic of layouts, we need to understand first the basic component. And for this demo, I will going to show you using this button component to understand that what other things that we can do aside from the normal components that we know. So we head back to our previous example. As you recall, last time when I create this basic template, I already called the basic component, and this is the what you call the button. For beginners, you already saw this one because every application button is the very basic component used in every application. So to modify this, understand what are the things that we can do aside from showing a button. We need to explore what are the other properties available. Okay, so as you recall, notice that we call the button from our material package, and we already applied the first properties, which is the variant. Okay, so aside from variant, if you're using your VS Code, point it in the properties here, and notice that there are also other variant properties. So aside from that, we have also the text and the outline. So to understand, we need to duplicate this component here. Let's say going to copy that one and going to replace those properties here. Let's say this one is text and this is outline. And there you go. What the property does is we can simply enhance those basic components. So that will beautify your presentation, especially if you're focusing on the beautification or the things that you want with your certain component. So aside from this one, of course. So okay, so that goes for the variant. We can also add other properties aside from this one. So let's say if we're working with HTML, we can also call that properties called, let's say, disable. Okay, so same goes with the basic HTML. We can also disable, or we can also apply that properties in Material UI. So as you can see, this button here is already disabled. So next, aside from the properties disabled, we can also call the predefined color. So by default, or should I say to call that color, we need to emphasize or call the property name color, and we can specify the default color here. So as you can see, using VS Code, we have this predefined, let's say the error, info, and so forth. So let's say I'm going to call this as, or call the primary color for this one, while this one, let's say I'm going to color this as secondary. And the next one, let's say I'm going to color this as the success. Okay. So anyway, you can change this later on as you go on with the documentation. So let's head back to our example. And there you go. Cool. So let's say maybe I should move this a little bit. So to do that, I'm going to add a header tag so that we know what so that we have a space in between on top of those components. So for this tag, I'm going to label this as button. Okay, so let's head back to our example, and there you go. Cool. Okay, nice. So aside from this one, of course, we don't want things to get too close to each other. So notice that, let's say, if you notice here, I added the text properties for the variant. So let's say I'm going to default this to contain. Notice that how the buttons presented. So there are no space in between. In writing or if you're making your very own first website, we need to see to it that everything should be a little bit cleaner or nice. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I want to add some space in between of each component. So luckily, in Material UI, there is a properties called stack. So to do that, I'm going to import the properties by simply calling that stack from, from the Material UI package. Okay. So what it does is this stack will serve as a container for that component. And for that component, we can simply do some stuff like adjusting the space. So from here, we need to call this stack. From here, we need to add some properties. Let's say going to add some space. Let's say spacing, going to add 2, I think. I think that should be enough. And the directions. Direction. Okay. So for the direction, I want to present it in a raw manner. So I want to call the raw. Okay, so once you're done, just enclose that. Take note if you're working with a certain component or properties, or like this one, make sure you need to enclose that within that component. Okay. So if you're going to save that and see how it works, and there you go. Okay. So that's how we beautify our component. So same goes, same approach when we're going to continues moving on to the next or tackle other component. So we need to emphasize that we need to emphasize the cleanness of the component. So this is one way of doing that. Okay. So aside from that one, another thing is we can also tap this with what we call an icon. So icon is a very basic presentation or properties of a button. So to do that, we need to check our documentation on how to apply this icon here. If you are on the browser, head back to the Material UI. Okay, so under here, we need to understand on how to install the material icon, because by default, as you remember or recall, last time when we installed the package, we only added these 3 basic package, so which is the emission, the React, styled, and the material UI. So these are only the basic things that we have. So notice here we don't install the material icon. So to do that, we need to install that package. And to understand what package that I'm talking about here, let's head back to the documentation and scroll down under material icons. Okay, from this documentation, we need to install this the MUI or the icon materials. So to do that, okay, okay. So basically, it's already here. So notice that other package here is already installed. So what I'm going to do, I just copy this first one here, the npm install at mui/icon/material. So copy that and head back to our React. Okay, there are two ways to do that. You can either cancel this running React here, or there's a plus button here. If this is your first time in using if you're this first time of using VS Code, you can simply add another terminal. So just click this plus button here. Just take note that once you're going to install something, make sure you are within the project. So right now, I'm going to paste that package. So that hit enter. Okay, so while waiting, what we're doing here is we need to install that package so that we can use the icons, which is available in Material UI. So to understand what are these icons, if you scan the documentation, you can see that there are a bunch of icons here to choose from. So if you plan of beautifying your components, you can simply pick from any from the selection here. So there's a lot of here to check. So just check on your browser and see what are the icons that you love most. So once you apply that, you can simply apply any from this icon here. So let's say, for example, I'm going to pick this plus button. Notice here, once I click this button, okay, notice how this how the documentation says. To apply this circle plus button, you need to import this package into your React, okay, or whatever components that you're working on. Just simply add this icon and everything should be fine. All right, so let's head back to our installation. Okay, this should take a while, so we need to wait a bit. All right, so right now we already finished the installation. Notice in this section here, this time we added the add MUI icons material. So at this point here, we can now use the icons that is available in Material UI. So to do that, we head back to our Hello World. And to call our very own icon, we need to import that icon. So to do that, head back to our header, somewhere here. We need to import that. So let's say I'm going to call, or just type import. And for the example, I'm going to going to call the alarm. Okay, we just need to be specific. So I'm going to name this as alarm icon from at MUI / material icon. Okay, and we need to state the name of the icon. So right now, you can see we have a bunch of common names for alarm. So let's say I'm going to pick the first one, which is the alarm. Okay, cool. I'm going to make sure this is alarm. Okay, now how to apply this icon? So basically, we can position that icon. Let's say we can apply that on the left side or on the right side. So to do that, let's say in here, in these properties, let's say better going to do it like this way so that you can see this very clear. So from here, I'm going to call that icon. And to call that, you can simply, if you want the icon to display on the left portion, so we can simply call the start icon. Okay. And from this bracket here, we can add the properties that we call or assign from our package here. So this one, I'm going to call the alarm icon. Okay, so I guess I can simply close that in this manner. Okay, so just to check. So this is how you declare if you want a button or if you want your icon to present it on the left corner. Now, to see if this works, so head back to your test example, and there you go. So notice now, our alarm icon was displayed in this corner here. So let's say for this next button here, I want to display that icon, but should be displayed on the right corner. So to do that, we need to apply the same manner. So let's say I'm going to move this bit. And from this point here, I'm going to apply these properties called N icon. Okay. And from here, so I'm going to call that alarm. Then hit save. So let's see if that works. Okay, good. So right now we set the properties to display at the end of the button. So let's check our example. And there you go. So that's it, guys. If you want to explore more, just check the documents from Material UI, and you can see a lot of example here on using the buttons and the icons. In my opinion, it would be best to not to memorize all these things. But since these are all present and also there's a bunch of here that you can explore more, you can simply copy those properties and apply to your component. So whatever things that you are comfortable with, so just make sure you are follow the proper documentation that presented in Material UI. All right? So cool. On the next topic, we'll be discussing more like the basic intro for the layout, which is the header and or the toolbar and so forth. So, but for now, if you find this video informative and interesting, please hit the like button and subscribe. And see you guys on the next video series. Cheers!